There's nothing wrong with me. Those 5 words, there's nothing wrong with me. That will change your entire life. I mean, just imagine how big of a breakthrough it is if you could wake up every single day and believe there's nothing wrong with me. Because the fact is, there is nothing wrong with you. I spent, God, Oak, 40 plus years of my life waking up every day believing there was something wrong with me. And one of the first things that everybody has to do if they're going to have a breakthrough in self-acceptance and self-kindness, like, let's not even go to self-love yet. Let's just start with self-acceptance. You must start to tell yourself, there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. Like, acceptance just means accepting yourself exactly as you are and exactly as you aren't. There's nothing wrong with me. That right there, if you could just do that, would completely change your relationship with yourself. Because we can't stop what other people might say, but you can absolutely alter and reprogram the way you talk to yourself. And so I just want to point out that bar right there, there's nothing wrong with me. If you just flip from constantly looking for what's wrong, and now you start reminding yourself, there's nothing wrong with me. Yeah, there are things that I could improve, of course, but there's nothing wrong with me. That is acceptance right there. And then you had this second epiphany, which is you thought, well, if nothing's wrong with me, why don't I just like myself? What a radical idea. I mean, imagine how much your life changes when you say to yourself, why don't I just like myself? I mean, other people can have opinions, but why don't I just like myself exactly as I am? I mean, I'm a good person. I'm trying hard. What's stopping me from liking myself? I mean, it's a radical question. I mean, what's stopping you from liking yourself? Well, if you're like most of us, you're basically holding some goal out as the thing that you got to do. Like, oh, I'd like myself if I lost 30 pounds. I'd like myself if I didn't have man boobs. I'd like myself if I didn't have bills piled up to the ceiling on my kitchen. I'd like myself if I didn't make all those mistakes. See, that's where we get it all wrong. I'm just talking about self-acceptance here. Because based on the research, you will never, ever feel motivated to change anything for the better if you're bashing yourself all the time. So number one, there's nothing wrong with you. And number two, liking yourself is not going to happen just because you lose the weight. You could make a decision to like yourself exactly where you are, simply because it feels good to like yourself. And also because you deserve that. And you need it. When you like yourself, when you accept yourself as you are, mistakes and all, boils, warts, whatever it is that you got, we all got something. When you feel a little bit better about yourself, an interesting thing happens. Through the self-acceptance first, there's nothing wrong with me. And through a little bit of kindness, why don't I just like myself, or at least treat myself like I like myself? What happens, and I notice this with you, Oakley, is that you start to act like you like yourself. You start to be kinder to yourself. You start to feel a little bit more motivated. The more you treat yourself as if you like yourself, the more other people can have their opinions, but your opinion is that you think you're a pretty good person and you treat yourself kindly, and then it starts to snowball from there. So imagine if you realize that the only thing that's stopping you from liking yourself is your own judgment. That means that you have the power to remove the judgment and add in kindness. And that changes everything. And that's not only something that makes a lot of sense, Oak, there's a lot of research around this. That when you accept yourself and you're kinder to yourself, that you start to take better care of yourself. Like when you look in the mirror and you're like, oh, I hate my man boobs. Do you feel motivated to do so? No, of course not. That's why I can't make a difference with you, because the lack of motivation comes from your self-criticism. And so this whole thing hinges on acceptance first and then kindness towards self. That's exactly how everything changes. And I watched that happen with you, Oak.
Yeah, why not just like yourself?
Well, that brings me to something. So I want to read to you a question from somebody that listens to the podcast.
Okay.
Corinne Schillinger. She says, it's great advice, but here's the deal. Everyone says love yourself, accept yourself, validate yourself. These are general terms. No one actually knows what that means. What does loving yourself actually look like? What does that mean in our everyday lives? Please do an episode about what loving, accepting, and validating yourself looks like, feels like. Specific examples. So many people are frustrated and find themselves confused by the advice, love yourself. So what does that mean? And give specific examples of what you do.
It is an incredibly broad term. Just love yourself. So easy to say. But I personally think that loving yourself is different for everybody. Everybody's going to love themselves in a different way. The way I like myself is, I feel like there's always little things. There's always little things about yourself that you can find that you like.
So number one, find something little.
It doesn't have to be big. Doesn't have to be big.
So give us 3 examples of little things you like or love about yourself.
Right now.
Yes.
I haven't looked at a mirror recently, but I think I like my hair right now. Pretty sure I like my hair right now.
Okay.
We'll check the footage later. Let's see here. I'm liking my smile right now. I really like my smile. And I'm also liking like who I am in my friend group right now.
What does that mean? So what do you like about who you are? Give me a specific example.
It's kind of like how I'm acting with my friends and how I'm treating them and how I'm like respecting them and being there for them. I'm enjoying that. I'm liking that about myself.
You're proud of yourself.
I am proud of myself.
Can you give another example that is not about something physical?
About something physical. I'm proud of how I'm doing in school. I'm doing pretty well in school.
And do you know why you're doing well?
Because I'm trying.
Yes. Yeah. So you're proud of yourself for trying.
Yeah, I am. See, it's like those little things. Like when people are like negative, it's also so more broad when they're negative about themselves, and it's like a bigger thing. Like, oh, I don't like the way my stomach looks, or I don't like the way I look,
or I don't like my grades, or I don't like this, and then you don't feel motivated because you're beating yourself down.
Exactly.
And so you find number one, little teeny.
They can
things.
literally be like, I like the color of my eye right now. It doesn't have to be like the world ending, like, I look like a god. No, it just has to be like very little.
Yeah. Start with, I love the shape or the color of my eyes. I love the sound of my laugh. Find something small. And I'm focusing on simple and small habits because this is not something that happens overnight. Self-acceptance, self-kindness, self-love is a habit you practice. And for it to become second nature, you have to practice it every single day. And so we've already talked about 2 things that you can do. One is find one small thing that you like about yourself. It could be that you're a great friend, that you have an amazing laugh, that you're a wonderful cook, that you're a terrific son, that you try really hard at work, that you are proud of the way you're working on your boundaries. There is one thing that you need to compliment yourself on every single day. And if you can't think of something, look in that mirror and look at your iris and just compliment the incredible miracle that is that unique pattern and color that is unique to you. Of 8 billion people on this planet, you're the only one with an eyeball that is designed and looks like that. And that is freaking cool. So start with that. The second thing you're going to do is before you go to bed, scan your day and think of one win, just a small win. And the reason why I want you to think of a small win is because you don't realize how much your brain is currently scanning for what's wrong. And I want you to start to create a habit where we're going to retrain and reprogram your mind to look for what's going right. Because there's a whole lot going right in your day that you're not giving yourself credit for. And whether you got out of bed, that's a win. You got dressed, there's a win. You got to work, there's a win. You smiled at a stranger, there's a win. You treated yourself to a coffee today, there's a win. You got outside and looked at the sun, there's a win. I mean, there are so many things you do right and you don't even realize it. And so I want you to start to just interrupt the campaign of negative thoughts with one win before you go to bed. And in just a second, I'm going to share my absolute favorite tool. But I just wanted to take a minute and say it's hard. You know, Oak sounds really upbeat, and so do I, and we're joking around because we're really good, we have a great relationship, and Oakley doesn't hate himself anymore. And I'm actively working on self-kindness and self-love. But it's hard, right, Oak?
It's definitely hard. It's not going to be easy to love yourself, and it takes time. It's like a muscle. I'd say it's definitely like a muscle. When you work at it and you start off small, like start off with small weight, and then you get bigger, it becomes easier. If you're think you're a very negative person right now, it's probably because it's a very unconscious decision that you're making. But when you start to try and work at it and you work more, it's going to become more unconscious that you are nice about yourself.
Oh my gosh, Oak. I almost forgot the most important habit that helps with self-love and self-acceptance, and that's the high five habit. All right, I'm going to explain it. The high five habit, super simple. Don't overthink this. I will do an entire episode about the high five habit, probably in January, because there's so much science to cover and so many stories to tell you. It's also the subject of my New York Times bestselling book called The High Five Habit. But let me just tell you what this habit is, because it is the thing you need to know based on science and research to have a breakthrough in self-acceptance and self-love. Here it is. Tomorrow morning, after you finish brushing your teeth, put the toothbrush down, and now I want you to do the high five habit, and this is how you do it. First, you look in the mirror. For many of you, that's going to be the hardest part. 50% of men and women, based on our research, cannot or will not look themselves in the mirror because they do not like the person they see. That is sad. And so I don't want you to be surprised if simply looking at yourself in the mirror is really difficult. Step 2, you are then going to raise your hand and high five your reflection. I know, it sounds dumb. It sounds stupid. Why would somebody do that? I'll tell you why somebody would do that in a later episode, because the science is so profound. The neuroscience, the research on motivation, the research on mindset, the research on how the dopamine gets released. It's just unbelievable what happens when you simply high five yourself in the mirror. I just want you to practice it and trust me on this one. Now, let me tell you what's going to happen. When you go to raise your hand, I don't want you to say anything. Nothing. It's just about the action and watching yourself high five yourself. The action alone of high fiving yourself does all the work neurologically, physiologically, chemically, and psychologically. It will take less than 5 days for you to have a breakthrough in self-love if you simply look in the mirror every morning and send yourself into your day by high fiving yourself in the mirror. You may laugh. The reason why you laugh is because your brain releases dopamine. This is really normal. You might burst into tears. That's also very normal, because you may not have looked at yourself for real or been kind to yourself for real in years. Many, many people are super surprised by how emotional they get by simply silently high-fiving themselves every morning in the mirror. If you have this visceral, that's the stupidest thing, I really want you to do it. Because not being willing to simply try something that I'm telling you, we've had 164,000 people in 91 countries go through a 5-day challenge with me called the High Five Challenge. I'll tell you about that in a minute. And the results are just irrefutable. This is the fastest way, based on science, to start rewiring your brain and to have a breakthrough in being kind and loving to yourself. And it works at a reprogramming level in your nervous system and in your brain. And it's all in the book. But I just want you to trust me on this. And so the best way to do this is let me coach you and support you, because I have developed a free, that's right, no money, nothing to buy, free 5-day challenge. It's called the High Five Challenge, HIGH, the number 5 challenge, HIGH, the number 5 challenge, high5challenge.com. Register for free. If you want a true breakthrough in how you speak to yourself, how you feel about yourself, loving yourself, this is the fastest way to do it, and I would love to coach you. So, High 5 Challenge. I'll see you in it. All right, Oakley, thank you for letting me do that. Let's bring it home. This is really like your debut on the podcast.
Feels great. Glad to be here.
I want to talk to you about the topic of self-love because the majority of people struggle with accepting, liking, and loving themselves.